The Dominion had ruled the Orion arm of the galaxy for 12,000 years. Their empire was vast and powerful, stretching across 900 star systems. They had conquered 17 different species and crushed them all beneath their clawed feet. There were tall creatures with thick gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dark, and their teeth were sharp like knives. They believed they were the greatest species in the universe, and for thousands of years, no one had proven them wrong. When their scout ships discovered Earth in the year 2847, they were not impressed. They saw a small blue planet filled with soft creatures who lived short lives. The humans had only been traveling between stars for about 200 years. They had colonies on a few dozen worlds, and their fleet was small compared to the great powers of the galaxy. They looked at humanity and saw nothing special. They saw another weak species that would soon bow before them. Admiral commanded the Third Fleet. He was old and cruel, with scars covering his face from many battles. He had destroyed entire civilizations on the orders of the High Council. When he received reports about the human colony on 442b, he saw an opportunity. The colony was far from Earth, isolated and poorly defended. It would make a perfect example to show humanity their place in the galaxy. Did not ask permission from the High Council. He did not send a warning. He simply gathered his fleet and jumped to the system on a cold morning in March. The humans detected his ships too late. By the time they understood what was happening, weapons were already firing. The attack lasted 6 hours. The colony had no military ships, only small transport vessels and mining craft. The settlers tried to evacuate, but fighters shot down every ship that attempted to leave the atmosphere. On the ground, soldiers marched through the streets of the colony's 3 cities. They killed everyone they found. Men, women, children. It did not matter to them. When the attack ended, 42,000 humans were dead. Among them were 17,000 children who had been attending school when the assault began. They burned the bodies and left the colony in ruins. Admiral recorded a message for the human government, telling them that this was the price of existing in space without permission. He told them to surrender their colonies and accept rule or face complete destruction. The message reached Earth 3 days later. It was played in the chambers of the United Human Coalition, the government that represented all of humanity across the stars. The representatives watched in silence as images of the massacre filled their screens. They saw the burning cities. They saw the bodies of children lying in the streets. They saw Admiral laughing as he described what his soldiers had done. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Prime Minister Elizabeth Shaw stood up. She was a small woman with white hair and gentle eyes, but when she spoke, her voice was like iron. "Call the vote," she said. The vote was unanimous. Every single representative from every human colony and nation voted the same way. There would be no negotiation. There would be no surrender. There would be war. 3 days after the massacre, a single human ship appeared at the edge of space. It was called the Wanderer, a small exploration vessel commanded by Captain Daniel. Was 43 years old with a weathered face and calm brown eyes. He had spent 20 years exploring the far reaches of the galaxy, making first contact with new species and charting unknown systems. He was not a soldier. He had never fired a weapon in anger. But when the Coalition asked him to deliver their message, he did not hesitate. The Wanderer transmitted on every frequency, sending its message to every species connected to the Galactic Communication Network. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds heard Captain speak. "To the Dominion and all who bear witness," said, his voice steady and clear. "The United Human Coalition has voted unanimously. We are now at war. We do not seek terms. We do not seek negotiation. You killed our children. There will be a reckoning." The transmission ended. The Wanderer jumped away before ships could respond. On the Eve Prime, the High Council received the declaration with amusement. High Commander, the leader of all military forces, laughed so hard that tears ran down his gray cheeks. "These creatures threaten us," he said to his advisors. "They have perhaps 200 ships. We command 50,000. This war will be over in weeks. We will add their worlds to our empire and their people to our slave pens." The other council members agreed. They had conquered species far more powerful than humanity. The humans were soft and weak. They had no great warriors, no ancient battle traditions. They would fall like all the others. But not everyone in the galaxy shared this view. On the Far From Space, Ambassador N watched the human transmission with growing concern. She was ancient even by the standards of her long-lived species. Her scales faded to pale silver with age. She had spent 2 centuries studying the younger races of the galaxy, learning their histories and their cultures, and no species had ever fascinated her like humanity. She turned to her young aide, a named N who had only recently joined the diplomatic corps. His scales were still bright green, and his eyes were wide with the confidence of youth. "The humans are doomed," N said. "Everyone knows this. That we'll crush them within a month." N shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "They have made a terrible mistake, perhaps the worst mistake in the history of our galaxy." N looked confused. "How can you say that? The humans are weak. They have no real military. They have spent their time among the stars exploring and trading, not fighting." "That is exactly why you should be afraid," N replied. She pulled up files on her display, showing images from human history. N saw wars fought with primitive weapons. He saw trenches filled with bodies. He saw cities reduced to ash by weapons that split atoms. He saw humans killing each other by the millions, over and over again, throughout their entire history. "The humans were peaceful because they chose to be," N explained. "They came to the stars hoping to leave their violent past behind. They wanted to be explorers and scientists, not conquerors. They chose friendship and cooperation over war." She paused, her ancient eyes filled with something that looked almost like fear. "But they did not forget how to fight. They simply chose not to, and now they have given them a reason to remember." N stared at the images on the display. He saw the mushroom clouds rising over human cities. He saw the endless graveyards stretching to the horizon. He saw the cold, determined faces of human soldiers marching into battle after battle after battle. "What will they do?" he asked quietly. N turned off the display. "I do not know," she admitted. "But I know this: they killed their children, and there is nothing more dangerous in this universe than a human with nothing left to lose." Across the galaxy, humanity went silent. Their colonies stopped transmitting. Their ships disappeared from known space. They waited for surrender that never came. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. No one was prepared for the answer. 6 months passed after humanity declared war on the Dominion. In that time, nothing happened. Human space went completely dark. No ships, no transmissions, no communication of any kind. It was as if 8 billion humans had simply vanished from the universe. They found this confusing at first, then amusing. High Commander told his officers that the humans were obviously hiding, too afraid to face the might of the Dominion. He ordered his fleet to assemble at the border of human space, ready to crush the enemy whenever they showed themselves. But the humans did not show themselves. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The fleet sat waiting, growing restless and bored. Across the galaxy, other species watched with interest. Most of them assumed the war was already over. The humans had clearly realized their mistake and gone into hiding, hoping they would eventually lose interest and go away. Some species felt sorry for humanity. Others thought they deserved what was coming for daring to challenge such a powerful empire. Only a few voices urged caution. Ambassador N of the Federation spoke before the Galactic Council, warning them not to underestimate the humans. She reminded them of humanity's history, of the wars they had fought among themselves for thousands of years. She told them that human silence was not a sign of weakness, but a sign of preparation. Most of the council ignored her. Delegate X of the collective laughed openly at her concerns. "The humans are insects," he declared in his buzzing voice. "They will step on them and that will be the end of it. There is nothing to worry about." N did not argue. She simply returned to her seat and waited. She had lived long enough to know that some lessons could only be learned through experience. On Prime, the High Council grew impatient with the waiting. They had expected a quick victory, a chance to add human worlds to their empire and human slaves to their workforce. Instead, they had nothing but silence and an expensive fleet sitting idle at the border. High Commander finally decided to take action. "Enough waiting," he announced to the War Council. "The humans hide like prey animals because that is what they are. We will go to there and burn it to ash. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who dare challenge the Dominion." The War Council agreed unanimously. Orders went out to the fleet. 8,000 warships powered up their engines and prepared to jump into human space. Admiral, the officer who had ordered the original massacre, requested permission to lead the attack. He wanted to be the one who conquered Earth, the one who brought humanity to its knees. Granted his request gladly. The Armada jumped through hyperspace toward the Sol system, home of humanity. It was the largest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled for a single operation. 8,000 ships, carrying 2 million soldiers and enough weapons to destroy 100 worlds, stood on the bridge of his flagship, imagining the glory that awaited him. When the fleet arrived in the Sol system, they found nothing. The space around Earth was empty. No defense platforms, no orbital stations, no fleet waiting to meet them. Ordered his ships to scan the entire system, searching for any sign of human military presence. They found nothing but abandoned satellites and empty space stations. "Where are their defenses?" demanded. "Where is their fleet?" No one had an answer. The Admiral ordered his ships to approach Earth cautiously, expecting some kind of trap. But there was no trap. There was nothing at all. The fleet entered orbit around humanities without encountering any resistance. Sent landing parties to the surface. They reported back with news that made no sense. The cities were empty. The buildings were intact. The streets were clean, but there were no people. 8 billion humans had simply disappeared. Soldiers searched the abandoned cities for hours. They found homes with food still in the kitchens. They found vehicles parked neatly in garages. They found toys scattered in children's rooms. But they found no humans, not a single one. "This is impossible," muttered. "Where did they go?" The answer came suddenly, without warning. Every communication system in the fleet activated at once. Screens flickered, speakers crackled, and then a face appeared. It was a human female with short brown hair and pale blue eyes. She looked calm, almost peaceful, but there was something cold in her expression that made blood run cold. "My name is Bell," she said. "I am the commander of the United Human Coalition military forces. I wanted to thank you, Admiral, for bringing so many of your ships to one place. You have made our job much easier." Tried to cut the transmission, but nothing worked. Every ship was forced to listen. "While you searched for us, we have been busy," Commander Bell continued. "For 6 months, while you sat at our border waiting for us to surrender, we were building. We were planning. We were preparing." The main screen on's bridge changed, showing a tactical display of space. Red dots appeared across the map, hundreds of them, surrounding key positions. "You're now surrounded by 412 human vessels," Bell said. "They carry weapons your sensors cannot detect and your shields cannot stop. Your 12 largest colony worlds are in the same position. Your supply lines have been severed at 19 different points. Your communications network has been compromised. And your fleet is sitting in an empty system, far from home, with nowhere to run." Stared at the tactical display in disbelief. It had to be a trick. The humans could not have done this. They did not have the ships. They did not have the technology. It was impossible. "You are wondering how we did this," Bell said, as if reading his thoughts. You looked at us and saw a weak species with primitive technology. You were wrong. We showed you what we wanted you to see: our exploration ships, our merchant vessels, our peaceful colonies. We did not show you our military shipyards hidden in asteroid fields. We did not show you the weapons we developed but hoped we would never have to use. We did not show you what humanity becomes when we have no choice but to fight. The transmission paused. Commander Bell leaned forward, and her cold eyes seemed to stare directly at. You killed our children, Admiral. 42,000 innocent people who had done nothing to you. 17,000 of them were children in their schools, learning about the universe, dreaming of the future. You took that future from them. Her voice did not rise. It did not shake with anger. It was calm and cold and absolutely certain. Now we will take everything from you. The transmission ended. Immediately ordered his fleet to retreat, to jump back to space. But when his ships tried to engage their hyperspace drives, they found every jump point blocked by human vessels. Humanity had not been hiding. Humanity had not been afraid. Humanity had been waiting, preparing, and positioning their forces with perfect precision. And now the trap was closed. On the Ambassador N watched the reports coming in from space. She saw the panic in the High Council as they realized there was surrounded. She saw the confusion in Admiral's fleet as they discovered they were cut off from reinforcements. N stood beside her, his green scales pale with shock. "How did they do this?" he whispered. "How did the humans build a fleet large enough to surround without anyone noticing?" N smiled sadly. "Because no one was looking," she said. "Everyone was so certain the humans were weak that they never bothered to look closely. The humans used that blindness against us all." She turned away from the display, suddenly feeling very tired. "The war has truly begun now," she said, "and I fear the galaxy will never be the same." The galaxy had never seen warfare like this. In the weeks following the trap at Earth, human forces struck the Dominion from every direction. They did not fight like any species the galaxy had ever known. They did not form battle lines. They did not meet their enemies in open combat. They appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating force, and vanished before anyone could respond. Commanders could not understand what was happening. Their ships would be traveling through safe space one moment, and the next moment they would be under attack from human vessels that seemed to materialize out of empty space. Supply convoys were destroyed. Communication relays were disabled. Military bases were attacked and abandoned before reinforcements could arrive. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Intelligence could not track their movements. Sensors could not detect their ships until they were already firing. It was like fighting ghosts. Within 2 months, the military had lost 400 ships, not in large battles but in dozens of small engagements scattered across their territory. Human losses were minimal. They never stayed long enough to take serious damage. They hit hard and fast, then disappeared back into the darkness between stars. High Commander raged at his officers, demanding explanations and results. He ordered his fleets to hunt down the human ships, but they could not find them. He ordered his scientists to develop countermeasures against human weapons, but they did not understand how the weapons worked. He ordered increased patrols on all trade routes, but the humans simply attacked elsewhere. The Dominion, the greatest military power in the Orion Arm, was being slowly taken apart by an enemy they could not see, could not catch, and could not stop. News of the war spread across the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of the Dominion for centuries watched in amazement as the mighty struggled against a species they had dismissed as weak and primitive. Questions began to arise. How was this possible? How were the humans doing this? The Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss the war. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber on the neutral world of Prime. They came seeking answers, and they looked to Ambassador N to provide them. N walked slowly to the speaking platform. She was ancient, her silver scales dull with age, but her eyes were sharp and clear. She had been studying humanity for 2 centuries, longer than most species had even known humans existed. She understood them better than anyone else in the chamber. "You want to know how this is possible," she said, her voice carrying through the vast hall. "You want to understand how a species with only 200 years of space travel is defeating an empire that has ruled for 12,000 years. I will tell you, but you will not like the answer." She activated a holographic display that floated above the chamber floor. Images appeared, showing humanities throughout its history. "Earth," In said, "a world that we classified as a death world. High gravity, extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, toxic plants, natural disasters of every kind. Most species would not survive on such a planet. Humans not only survived, they thrived." The images changed, showing early humans hunting on ancient plains. Humans evolved as pursuit predators. They did not have sharp claws or venomous bites. They were not the fastest or the strongest creatures on their world, but they had endurance. They would chase their prey for hours, sometimes days, never stopping, never giving up, until their target collapsed from exhaustion. This is called persistence hunting, and humans were masters of it. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Pursuit predators were rare in the galaxy, and they were always dangerous. "But that is not what makes humans truly terrifying," N continued. "What makes them terrifying is this." The display changed again, showing images of human warfare throughout history. Primitive battles with clubs and stones, armies clashing with swords and spears, soldiers in trenches surrounded by mud and blood, cities burning under aerial bombardment, mushroom clouds rising over destroyed landscapes. Humans spent most of their history fighting each other, N explained. War after war after war for thousands of years. They developed new weapons constantly, each one more destructive than the last. They created weapons that could kill millions in an instant. They created poisons that could wipe out entire cities. They created bombs that could crack the crust of a planet. The chamber was completely silent. Every delegate stared at the images of human destruction. They knew these weapons were terrible. They knew the danger, so they made agreements to limit them. They locked away their most destructive technologies, not because they could not use them, but because they were afraid of what they might do to themselves. And paused, letting her words sink in. When humans came to the stars, they chose to leave that history behind. They wanted to be explorers, not conquerors. They wanted to meet new species and learn from them. They built merchant ships instead of warships. They founded research stations instead of military bases. They became the friendly, peaceful species that we all came to know. She turned to face Delegate X of the collective, who had laughed at her warnings months ago. "You called them insects," she said. "You thought they were weak. You were looking at a species that had chosen peace, a species that was deliberately hiding its true nature because it wanted to be better than its past. You mistook that choice for inability." X said nothing. His compound eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme distress in his species. "They killed their children," N continued. "They attacked a peaceful colony and murdered 42,000 innocent people. They thought this would frighten humanity into submission. Instead, they woke something that had been sleeping." She pointed at the images of human warfare still floating above the chamber. "This is what they awakened. 10,000 years of warfare. 10,000 years of strategy and tactics refined through endless conflict. 10,000 years of weapons development. 10,000 years of humans learning how to kill each other in increasingly efficient ways." The display changed one final time, showing current reports from the war: ships destroyed, bases captured, supply lines in chaos. The humans are not fighting like any species we have seen before because they are not using alien tactics. They are using human tactics. The same tactics they developed fighting each other for: ambush, guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, economic warfare. They are hitting the everywhere at once, never giving them a moment to rest or recover. N deactivated the display and looked around the silent chamber. You wanted to know how this is possible. Now you know. The humans were peaceful because they chose to be, not because they had to be. And now they have given them a reason to stop choosing peace. A young delegate from a species N did not recognize stood up. What will happen now? She asked, her voice trembling. Will the humans conquer the Dominion? Will they become the new tyrants of the Orion Arm? N considered the question carefully. I do not know, she admitted. I have studied humans for 2 centuries and I still do not fully understand them. They are capable of great cruelty, but also great kindness. They can destroy entire civilizations, but they can also show mercy to their defeated enemies. She began walking back toward her seat, then stopped and turned around. But I will tell you this, she said. If I were I would be very, very afraid, because humans do not forget. They do not forgive easily, and they never, ever give up. They will chase their enemies across the galaxy if they have to. They will fight for years, for decades, for as long as it takes. That is what persistence predators do. She sat down heavily, feeling the weight of her many years. The thought they were hunting prey, she said quietly. They have just discovered that they were the prey all along. The Galactic Council sat in stunned silence. For the first time, they truly understood what they had unleashed upon the galaxy, and they were terrified. The war lasted 11 months. In that time, the Dominion, an empire that had stood for 12,000 years, was systematically dismantled piece by piece. Human forces did not seek territorial conquest. They did not invade worlds or occupy their cities. Instead, they targeted infrastructure. Shipyards were destroyed in precise strikes that left surrounding areas untouched. Weapons factories were reduced to rubble while nearby civilian buildings stood unharmed. Communication relays were disabled, cutting off commanders from their fleets. The humans crippled the war machine without killing a single civilian. This confused them more than anything else. Every other species they had fought had tried to kill as many as possible. The humans seemed to be going out of their way to avoid civilian casualties while systematically destroying military targets. High Commander could not understand this strategy. Why do they spare our civilians? He demanded at a War Council meeting. Are they weak? Do they lack the will to do what must be done? Admiral, who had been trapped at Earth for 3 months before finally escaping with less than half his fleet, shook his head. They are not weak, he said quietly. I have seen what they can do. They spare civilians because they choose to, not because they cannot kill them. This answer did not comfort the High Council. An enemy that showed mercy was unpredictable. They did not know what to expect. The human strategy became clear as the months passed. They were not trying to destroy the people. They were trying to destroy the ability to make war. Without shipyards, the Dominion could not build new vessels. Without weapons factories, they could not replace lost equipment. Without communication relays, they could not coordinate their remaining forces. By the 8th month of the war, the military was in chaos. Fleets operated independently, unable to communicate with Central Command. Supply ships never arrived at their destinations. Officers made decisions without knowing what was happening elsewhere in the Empire. The humans, meanwhile, seemed to know everything. They knew where ships would be before they arrived. They knew which targets were most important. They knew exactly where to strike to cause the most damage. They have spies everywhere, concluded. They must have infiltrated our communications. He was partly right. Human intelligence had indeed broken encryption codes months ago, but that was only part of the story. The humans also had something that did not: creativity. Human commanders were encouraged to think for themselves, to adapt to changing situations, to find new solutions to old problems. Commanders followed orders from above and waited for guidance when things went wrong. In a war where conditions changed rapidly, This difference was devastating. As the 11th month of the war approached, the Dominion was on the edge of collapse. Their economy was in ruins. Their military was shattered. Their colonies were isolated and defenseless. The High Council began discussing surrender. But then came the anniversary of the massacre. On that day, 1 year after Admiral had ordered the destruction of the human colony and the murder of 42,000 innocent people, human forces surrounded the military academy on Prime. The academy was the heart of the military tradition. Every officer had trained there. Every admiral, every general, every commander had walked its halls and learned the arts of war within its walls. It was also where Admiral had fled after escaping from Earth, believing he would be protected by its ancient walls and powerful defenses. Commander Bell transmitted a message to the Academy, broadcast across the planet for all to hear. This is Commander Bell of the United Human Coalition. 1 year ago today, Admiral ordered the destruction of our colony on 442B. 42,000 of our people died, including 17,000 children. We have not forgotten. She paused and her voice grew colder. Admiral is currently inside the academy. We know this. We have given the government multiple opportunities to surrender him to us for trial. They have refused, so we will handle this matter ourselves. Human ships began moving into position above the academy. Panic spread through the building as officers realized what was about to happen. All non-military personnel have 2 hours to evacuate, Bell continued. All cadets have 2 hours to evacuate. All support staff have 2 hours to evacuate. Anyone who is not a commissioned military officer may leave safely. We will not harm them. For 2 hours, shuttles flew from the academy carrying cadets, instructors, cooks, maintenance workers, and medical staff. Human ships let them pass without incident. Some officers tried to escape by disguising themselves as civilians. Human scanners identified them and they were turned back. When the 2 hours ended, Commander Bell transmitted one final message. Admiral, you murdered our children. Today, you will answer for that crime. The strike was surgical and absolute. Human weapons reduced the ancient academy to molten glass in less than 3 minutes. Admiral died alongside 3,000 military officers who had chosen to remain with him. The galaxy watched in shock. Some species condemned the attack as barbaric, others nodded in understanding. The humans had shown mercy throughout the war, sparing civilians and offering surrender terms. But they had also made clear that some crimes would not go unpunished. The following day, human ambassador Samuel Grant addressed the Galactic Council. He was a small man with gray hair and tired eyes. He did not look like a warrior or a conqueror. He looked like someone's grandfather. But when he spoke, every species in the galaxy listened. We did not want this war, Grant said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. We came to the stars hopping to find friends. We wanted to learn, to explore, to grow alongside other civilizations. We built merchant ships instead of warships. We founded research stations instead of military bases. We tried to be good neighbors. He paused, and something changed in his expression. The tired old man disappeared, replaced by something harder and colder. They took that hope from us when they murdered our children. 42,000 innocent people who had done nothing wrong. 17,000 of them were children, sitting in their classrooms, learning about the universe they would never get to explore. Grant's voice did not rise, but it carried throughout the silent chamber. We showed mercy in this war. We targeted military installations and spared civilians. We offered surrender terms that many considered too generous. We did not seek to exterminate the people or destroy their civilization. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of different species. But we also showed that mercy has limits. Admiral ordered the murder of our children. He laughed about it in his report to the High Council. He called it a demonstration of power. Yesterday, We demonstrated our power in return. Grant straightened his tired shoulders. Let this serve as a lesson to every species in this galaxy. Humanity will extend friendship to all who offer it. We will trade fairly, explore peacefully, and keep our word without fail. We do not seek conquest or empire. We want only to live in peace. His eyes hardened. But if you harm our people, we will respond. If you attack our colonies, we will strike back. And if you kill our children, we will hunt you down. We will break you. And we will make certain you can never threaten anyone again. He sat down. The chamber remained silent for a very long time. 3 days later, the Dominion formally surrendered. The High Council agreed to all human terms. The war was over. But its effects would echo through the galaxy for centuries to come. 5 years after the war ended, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Dominion still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had once been. Their military was limited by treaty to defensive forces only. They could not build new warships or weapons of mass destruction. Their conquered worlds had been liberated, free to govern themselves for the first time in thousands of years. Every child learned in school about the day their ancestors made the worst mistake in galactic history. But humanity had surprised the galaxy once again. They had won the war decisively. They had proven themselves to be the most dangerous military force in the Orion Arm. Every species expected them to claim an empire, to take territory, to become the new dominant power. Instead, the humans did something unprecedented. Ambassador Samuel Grant stood before the Galactic Council and proposed a new kind of alliance. He called it the Galactic Compact. It was not an empire with humanity at its head. It was a mutual defense treaty, open to any species willing to follow certain rules. No wars of aggression, no genocide, no attacks on civilian populations, no conquest of sovereign worlds. Any species that joined the compact would be protected by all other members. Any species that violated the rules would face the combined response of the entire alliance. Many delegates were suspicious. This had to be a trick, a way for humans to control the galaxy without appearing to do so. But the terms of the compact were clear and fair. Humanity would have no special privileges. They would follow the same rules as everyone else. Ambassador N of the Federation was the first to sign the treaty. She walked slowly to the signing platform, her ancient silver scales gleaming in the council chamber lights. She had watched humanity for 2 centuries. She had warned the galaxy about what they were capable of. Now she watched them choose peace once again. "Why?" she asked Samuel Grant before adding her signature. "You could have ruled them all. After what you did to no species would have dared oppose you. You could have built an empire greater than any the galaxy has ever seen. Why did you refuse?" Grant smiled sadly. He looked even more tired than he had during the war, as if the weight of the past 5 years had settled permanently on his shoulders. "Because we have seen where that road leads," he said. "We spent walking it ourselves. Empire, conquest, domination, they all end the same way, in blood and fire and suffering. We came to the stars to become something better than we were." He looked out at the gathered delegates, representatives from 100 different species watching humanity with a mixture of respect and fear. "We are not conquerors, Ambassador. We never wanted to be. We just want to live in peace, raise our children, and explore the universe. That is all we have ever wanted." N studied him carefully. In her long life, she had learned to read the faces of many species. She saw no deception in Grant's expression, only weariness and hope. "And if someone threatens that peace again," she asked, "if another species attacks your colonies, kills your people?" Grant's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes, something old and cold and infinitely patient. "Then we will remind them why the galaxy learned to fear us, and we will keep reminding them until the lesson finally sticks." N nodded slowly. She understood now. Humanity was not offering peace because they were weak. They were offering peace because they were strong enough to enforce it. She signed the treaty, others followed quickly. Over the next 5 years, the Galactic Compact grew to include over 100 species. Wars did not end entirely. They never do, but they became rarer, smaller, and less destructive. Species that might have fought each other chose negotiation instead, knowing that the Compact would intervene if things went too far. And whenever a young species grew aggressive, whenever a rising power began to speak of conquest and domination, the older races would tell them the story of the Dominion. They would describe how the mightiest empire in the Orion Arm had been humbled by a species they had dismissed as weak and primitive. Be careful, the elders would warn. The humans are friendly, they are generous, they are kind, but never ever give them a reason to stop being those things. On the 10th anniversary of the massacre, a memorial was built on the ruins of the colony. Representatives from dozens of species attended the ceremony. They walked through gardens filled with flowers from 100 worlds, past statues carved by alien artists, along paths lined with the names of the dead. Commander Bell, now retired from military service, gave the dedication speech. Her brown hair had turned gray, and lines marked her face that had not been there during the war, but her pale blue eyes were still clear and sharp. "We built this memorial to remember," she said. "To remember the 42,000 people who died here. To remember the children who never got to grow up, never got to explore the universe, never got to become the scientists and artists and leaders they might have been." She paused, looking out at the crowd of humans and aliens standing together in the garden. "We also built it to remind ourselves of what we are capable of. During the war, we showed the galaxy what humanity becomes when pushed too far. We showed them our capacity for violence, for strategy, for relentless pursuit of our enemies. We won that war because we were willing to become something terrible." Her voice softened. "But that is not who we want to be. We want to be the species that builds gardens, not graveyards. We want to be the species that explores new worlds, not conquers them. We want to be the species that greets strangers with friendship, not fear." She gestured at the memorial around her. "This place reminds us of both truths. We are capable of great kindness and great destruction. We choose, every day, which of those paths to walk. The tried to choose for us. They learned the cost of that mistake." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence for the dead. Then the crowd dispersed, humans and aliens walking together through the gardens, talking quietly, sharing stories of those they had lost and those they had found. Ambassador N lingered near the central monument, a tall pillar of white stone carved with the names of all who had died. Samuel Grant found her there, staring up at the endless rows of names. "Do you regret it?" she asked without turning around. "The war, the destruction, everything that happened." Grant stood beside her looking at the names. "Every day," he said quietly. "We did terrible things, necessary things perhaps, but terrible nonetheless. I will carry that weight for the rest of my life." "But you would do it again." "Yes," he did not hesitate. "They killed our children. What else could we do?" N finally turned to face him. "You could have surrendered. You could have accepted rule. Many species have. They survive." Grant shook his head. "Survival is not enough. We did not come to the stars to survive. We came to live, to grow, to become something greater than we were. We could not do that under rule." He looked back at the memorial. "And we could not let them get away with what they did. Not because of revenge, but because of what it would mean if we did. If we let them murder our children without consequence, then every other aggressive species would know they could do the same. We had to show them that there was a cost." N nodded slowly. "And now?" "Now we build," Grant said. "We build the compact stronger. We build alliances. We build trust. We try to create a galaxy where what happened here can never happen again." He smiled, though his eyes remained sad. "We will probably fail. Someone will always choose violence. Someone will always think they can conquer and dominate and rule, but we will keep trying. We will keep pushing back against the darkness. That is what humans do. We never give up. The sun set over the memorial gardens, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In the distance, human and alien children played together, their laughter carrying across the flowers and the statues and the names of the dead. The galaxy had changed forever on the day humanity declared war, but perhaps, in the end, it had changed for the better. Only time would tell.